pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good. Let me tell you secret. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Pineapple. Looking very good, very Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very Let me tell you secret. Good morning, pineapple.
There were no income taxes. There were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes.
Right.
That's the world they want back. And to get it back, they need society to change. They need people to be less modern. They need people to want fewer things. Is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes. There were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes.
Oh, what? That sounds amazing. Everything that the Democrats think is bad is actually good. No income tax. You can keep your money. Regulations on your business. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Happy birthday, America. 250 years of greatness. Of God, guns, gold, and liberty. Jimmy Joe Patty knows what it's all about. He says, I wore my brand new 250th Betsy Ross polo, I'm guessing, to town yesterday. An English guy working on a documentary spotted it. I ended up sitting up for an interview in my brand new Betsy Ross 250th shirt. That's amazing. His polo, yes. He needs coffee. Make a pot of Revere's Rebel Roast. Do it. And join us in Boston May 1st and 2nd for an unbelievable revelry. A little revelry in the where we fought for our rights to party. Happy birthday, America. Rise and freedom. It's Tuesday. The world is on fire, and we're the only ones going to tell you the truth about it. And everything that you hear on this show today, you will hear on other shows a week from today. Remember Muneh Rahimi from Iran, the Persian baddie who did the Donald Trump dance, you know, the double jerk, as some people call it. No, don't call it that, Austin. No, it's too early for that. Remember Muneh Rahimi? She was on the Wake Up America show. And I told you 2 weeks. Just tell them, just give it 2 weeks, and it's going to be on the legacy media. And there she was on Fox News 2 weeks later. I'm not just patting myself on the back. This is an advertisement to remind you that when you're watching the Wake Up America show, you're watching the best in the damn business. The best guests, the best topics, the best news happening. You're hearing it before it happens. Let's start with your car. This is some news that we've all been dealing with. Specifically, it's good news, but you can't talk. The feature in your car that shuts the engine off at the red light and sometimes refuses to turn back on. 2.2 million vehicles under federal investigation. Drivers calling 911 from intersections. One owner told the federal government, quote, "My kids refuse to drive it." That feature existed because Washington bribed your car company to install it. Yeah. I know. February 12th, the federal government finally killed the bribe. Thank you, President Trump. Good morning, Dashenized. Looking very good and very nice. So on February 12th, the government killed the bribe and in the process launched the single largest deregulatory action in American history, one that's headed to the Supreme Court and could permanently change how this country makes climate policy. The stop-start feature is dead. The constitutional fight is just beginning. We're going to explain both on the show. Marco Rubio, NATO's biggest defender, arch neocon circa 2016. Now NATO's most interesting critic, spent years writing the law that makes it illegal to leave the alliance. He's now on television asking why we're in the alliance. The man installed his own ankle bracelet and then called the cops to complain he cannot leave the house. So we're not here to mock him for that. We're here to tell you he is right. Marco Rubio is right. Get that gosh darn government out of our cars and the ethanol out of our fuel. That's damn right. Captain Tight Pants says, vote no on the KC earnings tax today. Hell yeah, no on all the taxes. Just remember, when you guys are going to vote on taxes today, remember this clip. Listen right here and go and vote today here after hearing this.
Is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes, there were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes. That's the world we want back. And to get it back.
Oh, oh no, the Democrats hear that and they're like, what are you guys doing? Trying to unlock the bonus content this morning? I see you over there with your orders. Young and Rebellious. Oh, Steffi's going to be so glad that you bought that shirt. The Young and Rebellious Founders circa 1776 shirt at the Grift Shop. I'm not just trying to run an ad here, guys. I'm responding to what you're saying in the comments. I'm so glad you love the merch. This 250th anniversary embroidered American flag polo shirt looks amazing. Oh shit, you know what I forgot? Damn it. You know what? If we have a commercial break today, I got something to show you guys. I got something to show you. So remind me at the end of the show about the surprise. What are you guys doing? What's going on? You guys go to the shop. You're supposed to make me beg for it, guys. You're supposed to make me work really hard. Joel Edamore got the Liberty Roots 1776 embroidered fleece pullover. Guys, you're going to love it. They're wearing it on military bases around the world. Ask me how I know. Welcome. It was me, Siggy's mom. You got it going on. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. We do it for you. We do it for the fans. These chicks don't even know the name of my band. We're not here to mock Marco Rubio this morning. We're here to say he's right. Spain said no. France said no. Italy said no. We built those bases. We paid for these bases. We asked to use those bases, and the answer is no. Rubio spent 30 years defending an alliance that just failed its only real test since September 11th. And instead of doubling down, like every other Washington politician would have done, Marco Rubio said the quiet part out loud. That takes something, and we will tell you what it takes today. While that is happening across the Atlantic and south of the equator, a man with a chainsaw and an economics degree is doing something that the entire global left told him was impossible. Javier Milei took over a country where 53% of the population lived in poverty. The experts said his plan would destroy the poor. The data just came back. Poverty is now at 28%. Well done there. The lowest since 2018. In 2 years, the experts were wrong. Milei was right. And today we're going to go deep on what actually happened. And this isn't about the memes or the headlines. This is the real numbers you're going to get on the Wake Up America show. You're going to get the real story here. You'll be the most informed on international news and what it looks like on the ground in Buenos Aires. And surprise, it's not what CNN is going to tell you. So, but they're all on me like they want to hold hands. Also today, Kansas stole the Kansas City Chiefs. Boo! And stay out. $1.8 billion of taxpayer money along with it. Largest stadium deal in American history. Economists from Brookings to the St. Louis Fed to a panel of 7 Nobel Prize winners in economics all agree that public stadium subsidies do not pay off. So either Kansas knows something that these 7 economists don't, or a billionaire just played 2 state governments like a fiddle and walked away with $2 billion in public money while everybody clapped like idiot seals. We're going to ask the question nobody in Kansas City politics wants to answer. And guess who's going to talk about it with us today? Camelia Peterson. But they're all on me like they want to hold hands. Hand, ban. NATO, Argentina, Kansas City. They got some crazy little women there, and I'm gonna get me one. Camelia Peterson at 8 a.m., guys. Don't miss her. Talk about the Royals. So whether it's the engine in the car, the team in your city, the alliance that your country's locked into, or the economy of an entire nation, the results are usually worse than if they had just left you alone. Javier Milei figured it out. Marco Rubio is figuring it out. Kansas is about to find out the hard way, and your Honda Pilot already knows. Wake up, America. Let's get into this. Let's do it. Hope you guys are in a good mood. Click the like button. And thank you so much. You guys are crazy, crazy generous over there. So let's start. February 7th, 2026. A woman is driving her 2022 Honda Pilot through a major intersection. The light's green. She presses the gas. Nothing happens. The engine, which her car shut off automatically at the red light, will not restart. Cars are coming. She's turning on her hazards. Nothing. She calls 911. This is not her first rodeo. 4 days earlier, the exact same thing happened at a different intersection. She is one of 1,348 people who filed complaints with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration about the exact same defect. NHTSA has 2.2 million vehicles under federal investigation. Honda Pilots, Odysseys, Passports, Ridgelines, Acura, TLX, and MDX models years 2015 through 2025. Honda knew about the defect as early as January 2017. They issued a service bulletin 6 years later. One owner writes, "I fear for my life driving this vehicle. My kids refuse to drive it." Another wrote, "My most recent stall would not let me turn on my hazards as my vehicle completely died at a stoplight. I have called 911 multiple times to protect me from being rear-ended." So how did this feature end up in 58% of all new gasoline non-hybrid cars in America? Nobody asked for it. Here's how. In 2012, the Obama EPA invented something called off-cycle credits. If an automaker installed a feature that reduced real-world emissions, even if it didn't show up on standard lab tests, they earned regulatory compliance points. Auto stop-start qualified. The credit was worth roughly 1 mile per gallon on paper, essentially free points. Stick this feature in your car, check the box, earn the credit. No automaker was going to leave that on the table. So this is what regulatory capture looks like when it's wearing a fuel economy label. The government did not mandate stop-start directly. They just bribed the entire automotive industry to install it and then acted surprised when drivers started calling 911 from intersections begging for help. Now, here's the honest science on the unforced error. On February 12th, 2026, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin stood next to Trump and said that no significant benefit to the environment and, quote, kills the battery of your car. And the AP says that both of those claims are debunked. The AP may be correct. In 2023, the Society of Automotive Engineers published a peer-reviewed study, 4 vehicles, 3 standardized driving cycles, and found auto stop-start improves fuel economy between 7 and 26%, depending on conditions. The AAA found 5 to 7% improvement in urban driving and estimated up to $179 in annual gas savings. The technology works in a traffic jam. The science says so. But here's the Bill Maher moment, guys, where everybody is going to get uncomfortable with what I have to say. The technology works in a traffic jam and also malfunctions in 2.2 million vehicles and leaves people calling 911. Both of those things can be true at the same time. And Zeldin saying that the technology is worthless instead of the government shouldn't be choosing your technology for you is sort of an unforced error. Because the moment somebody pulls out the study, the argument collapses. The airtight argument, the one that wins on its merits, is this. The government should not engineer consumer outcomes by paying corporations to install technology you never requested. That argument does not require the technology to be worthless. It just requires you to believe that in a free society, the contents of your own vehicle should not be decided in a federal credit system. If you live in Manhattan and you sit in traffic 2 hours a day, maybe you want a stop-start. Buy a car that has it. If you drive 60 miles of highway in rural Missouri every morning, your superiority has caused some controversy. The feature does literally nothing for you except make your car jerk at every stoplight. That's called the market. That's called freedom. And I think that that's the way that we should be. They should hire me at the White House to write these speeches for the cabinet. Good morning, Pineapples. Looking very good and very nice. Glad and thankful to have you here. Had a great conversation with Joni Rankin yesterday. I've been talking to so many wonderful people. Joni and I had a nice chat. If you would like to speak with me on the phone, you can set up a call as well. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. And we will talk about how we're going to save America together. God bless America. And I'm proud to be an American. So here's the part that nobody's going to be covering. No one else is going to say what I'm going to say here because stop-start is the funny punchline, and what comes next is not funny at all. So we didn't just kill the stop-start credit on February 12th. He signed what the EPA is calling the single largest deregulatory action in American history, eliminating the entire 2009 endangerment finding. Every greenhouse gas standard for every vehicle from model year 2012 to 2027 is gone. Now, that finding traces back to a 5-4 SCOTUS decision in 2007 called Massachusetts versus the EPA. The majority said greenhouse gases qualify as air pollutants under the Clean Air Act of 1970. So Obama's EPA walked in the door with the endangerment finding already written, and the regulatory machine ran for 16 years on the back of those two decisions. Nobody voted for that. Now, the Trump EPA, in a move that was either brilliant or terrifying, depending on which parking lot you voted in, which chose not to fight the climate science at all. They made a purely legal argument. The Clean Air Act of 1970 was written to handle local and regional pollution. The smog over Los Angeles, the sulfur dioxide choking Pittsburgh, not the redistribution of atmospheric heat across the entire planet. They're invoking the major questions doctrine established by SCOTUS in West Virginia versus EPA in 2022. The rule is simple. If an agency wants to regulate something of enormous economic and political significance, Congress must have explicitly authorized it. Nobody in Congress explicitly authorized the EPA to dictate the engine design and driver experience of every car built in America. That happened because two people said so. A coalition of 24 states immediately filed suit. 25 other states filed to defend the rule. Everybody in the courtroom knows this is heading the Supreme Court. If the Trump administration wins, no future administration can use the Clean Air Act to run national climate policy without an act of Congress. This will be a structural change to how this country governs itself. And that is where it belonged all along. A woman in a 2022 Honda Pilot calling 911 from an intersection on February 7th. 5 days later, the government killed the credit system that put that feature in her car. Those two facts belong in the same sentence. The feature is dead, but the constitutional fight is just beginning. Good morning, pineapples. Looking very good and very nice. In Jam 77, Drew Van Runkle rubs it in our face by saying the Tesla doesn't cut its power when it stops. Well, good for you. I'm driving a Tesla. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, click the like button and follow us as well. This show is live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. We'd love to have you be a regular guest. Check out all those awesome people hanging out over there on the side. We even got Dashanized over on YouTube. What's up, Dash? Jody Rankin's over there in the chat. Luddick Lore, who joined our community recently. Glad to have him here. Quest Fanning, he's going to be with us in Boston, if you can believe it. We're going to have a blast May 1st and 2nd for the Peterson's Patriots' second annual Liberty Tour. Joni says, it was a great conversation. As always, learn from you, AP, not just facts, but a view of history in a different light. Yeah, I was talking a little bit yesterday about the Middle Eastern conflict and just looking at it from the point of view of the founding fathers and their fights with the pirates of Barbary, of the Barbary, age of barbarism, fighting sail. It was a good convo. If we haven't chatted yet on the phone, send me a text, 573-319-1586. Introduce yourself and send me some times. Good times. We'll call. Have a nice little chat. Before we get to Marco Rubio and the NATO reckoning, I just wanted to share with you guys, Stephanie is so proud of all of the beautiful items that she's been able to make for you guys. Somebody earlier ordered this. And this is so cute because, you know, obviously Steffi was like a super, super fan when I ran for office. But I had a quote when I ran for president in the presidential debate about, you know, John Stossel was making fun of me for being young and running for president. I said I was 12 years old and I was ready for that question. So I listed off the names of the founders, the ages of the founders in 1776, which is quite young. Thomas Jefferson was 25, Betsy Ross 24, Madison 25, Hamilton 21, and the Marquis de Lafayette was just 18 years old. So I said young people founded this country and young people will restore it. And they turned it into a t-shirt. So Young and Rebellious, circa 1776, Betsy Ross, age 24. Isn't that amazing? I believe in young people. Boston Tea Party mug. That one is also really popular too. It looks like fine china recreation of the Boston Tea Party on this beautiful mug. Take a look, and I think it comes in a couple of sizes. Yeah, you can choose 11 or 15. I have to have the mega mug, so I'm always going to go for the 15-ounce mega mug. All the details on Peterson's Patriots Boston 250th Anniversary Tour right there on the front page. You can click on that and ask us any questions that you might. But the latest product drops, we got a bunch of stuff that came in, but this colonial soldier costume apron, guys, I can't freaking wait. I can't freaking wait. I'm going to have the biggest damn barbecue in Jefferson City. I'm going to have a big old smile on my face, guys. I'm going to have the biggest smile on my face, grilling up meat for my family, dressed like a revolutionary soldier, just like all black women do. There we go. So if you just head over to forlibertyshop.com this morning, and we're only like $6-7 away from unlocking the bonus content phase 1, guys. Keep it up. Thank you so much for your generosity. Really appreciate all that you guys are doing for us financially. It's a big deal. So yeah, next topic. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take a quick break. If we unlock the bonus content during the commercial break, guys, then before we go to the Marco Rubio topic, if you unlock it, then I'll play the bonus content for you guys. So somebody hit me up with a tenner, and I'll start the mini doc. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
A city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, He keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them." Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at forlibertyshop.com.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
In the hardscrabble farm country of Plimpton, Massachusetts on December 17, 1760, a girl was born into poverty who would one day stand in the ranks of the Continental Army as a man. Deborah Sampson, tall for her time, strong from years of backbreaking labor, with steady hands and sharper courage, grew up indentured after her father abandoned the family. She worked as a servant, then a school teacher, spinning wool, plowing fields, and reading every book she could borrow by candlelight. She dreamed of adventure and freedom while the colonies burned with rebellion. By 1782, the war dragged into its 7th year. The British still held New York. Skirmishes raged in the neutral ground north of the city. Deborah wanted in. At 21, she cut her hair short, bound her chest tight with linen strips, stitched herself a homemade uniform of coarse linen and wool, and walked into a recruiting office. On May 20th, 1782, she enlisted as Robert Shirtleff, taking the name of a dead brother, and mustered into Captain George Webb's company of light infantry, 4th Massachusetts Regiment. She drilled with the men at West Point, learning the manual of arms, marching in step, and handling a musket and bayonet. The troops nicknamed the beardless young soldier Molly for his smooth face, but no one suspected. Soon, Robert was assigned dangerous scouting duty in the contested Westchester County, no man's land between British and American lines, crawling with loyalist raiders called cowboys. Deborah proved her mettle fast. In one fierce skirmish, a musket ball slammed into her left thigh. Pain exploded. Blood soaked her breeches. She staggered into the woods, away from the surgeon's tent. Alone, biting on a stick to stifle screams, she dug out one bullet with a penknife and sewing needle by firelight. The second lodged too deep. She bound the wound and limped back to duty the next day, jaw set, never complaining. She fought in multiple clashes against Tory raiders. One night, she led a small party of 30 men on a raid against a loyalist stronghold. They stormed the house in the dark, sabers and bayonets flashing. Deborah fought hand to hand, helping capture 15 prisoners. Another time, a saber slashed across her forehead. Blood streamed into her eyes. She let the surgeon stitch the head wound but slipped away before anyone examined her leg. Through it all, she marched, scouted, stood picket in pouring rain, and shared the hard life of the infantry. Salt pork, hardtack, frozen nights wrapped in a single blanket. She never faltered. Some claimed she even helped dig trenches and storm redoubts during the final days at Yorktown, enduring the roar of cannon and the smoke of victory. In the summer of 1783, while serving near Philadelphia, a malignant fever swept the camp. Deborah collapsed unconscious. Army doctors carried her to the hospital. As they cut away her blood-soaked clothes to treat her, the secret spilled out. The surgeon stared in shock at the woman lying on the table. Word raced up the chain of command. Instead of punishment, she received mercy. General Henry Knox himself reviewed her case. Impressed by her courage and service, he ordered an honorable discharge. On October 25, 1783, at West Point, Robert Shirtleff was mustered out with the rest of the army. Deborah Sampson walked away with her back pay, a few hard-earned dollars, and the knowledge that she had fought for liberty as boldly as any man. She returned to Massachusetts, married farmer Benjamin Gannett in 1785, and raised 3 children on a small farm in Sharon. Life was never easy. Old wounds ached, especially the bullet still lodged in her thigh. But she never regretted her choice. In later years, she toured the country lecturing about her experiences, one of the first women to do so, dressed sometimes in her old uniform. Congress eventually granted her a full military pension, the only woman to receive one for direct service in the Continental Army. Deborah Sampson died on April 29, 1827 at 66. She was buried in Sharon, later honored with a monument and the recognition she earned in blood and silence. She was no officer, no famous general, just a poor farm girl who refused to sit on the sidelines of history. With nothing but courage, needle and thread, and unbreakable will, Deborah Sampson slipped past every barrier, took her place in the fight, and proved that a woman could bleed, suffer, and triumph for the cause of American independence. Her story still thunders like a hidden drumbeat in the ranks of the Revolution, one soldier among thousands whose secret made her legend.
Out of the triumphalism of the end of the long Cold War emerged a bipartisan consensus. And this consensus was that we had reached the end of history, that all of the nations of the world would now become members of the democratic Western-led community, that a foreign policy that served the national interest could now be replaced by one that served the liberal world order, and that all mankind was now destined to abandon national sovereignty and national identity and would instead become one human family and citizens of the world. This wasn't just a fantasy. We now know it was a dangerous delusion. Here in America and in many of the advanced economies across the world, an almost religious commitment to free and unfettered trade at the expense of our national economy shrunk the middle class, left the working class in crisis, collapsed our industrial capacity, and has pushed critical supply chains into the hands of adversaries and of rivals. An irrational zeal for maximum freedom of movement of people has resulted in a historic mass migration crisis here in America, but also around the world. It's one that threatens the stability of societies and of governments. Across the West, governments now censor and even prosecute domestic political opponents. Meanwhile, radical jihadists openly march in the streets and sadly drive vehicles into our people. While America far too often continued to prioritize the global order above our core national interests, other nations continue to act the way countries have always acted and always will, in what they perceive to be their best interest. And instead of folding into the post-Cold War global order, they have manipulated it to serve their interests at the expense of ours. The post-war global order is not just obsolete, it is now a weapon being used against us. And all this has led to a moment in which we must now confront the single greatest risk of geopolitical instability and of generational global crisis in the lifetime of anyone alive and in this room today.
Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Glad and thankful to have you here. God bless America. We've got a great show for you today. Marco Rubio used to be NATO's biggest fan. Not a casual fan, not a I slapped a NATO bumper sticker on my Prius fan. The man co-wrote the actual law that makes it illegal for any president to leave NATO without a 2/3 vote of the Senate. He believed in this alliance. He staked his reputation on it. He built the legal architecture to protect it. And now, after watching Spain, France, and Italy slam the door in America's face during an active military operation, he's on national television asking the question that libertarian nationalists like myself have been asking for 30 years. Why are we in NATO? And here's the thing, Rubio is not wrong now. He is arriving at the right answer from a very long road. Let's back it up. The United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury on February 28th. 4 objectives: dismantle Iran's nuclear program, destroy their missile sites, degrade their proxy networks, sink their navy. Trump addressed it at 2 in the morning on Truth Social. No press briefing, no congressional address. A Truth Social post. You love it. That's how the United States went to war with Iran in 2026. When the shooting started, the U.S. needed its NATO allies to do one thing: not fight, not fire a bullet. Just let us use the bases that we built on their soil. And he said what we needed to be said. If now we've reached a point where the NATO alliance means we can't use those bases to defend America's interests, then NATO is a one-way street. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question, right? He's right. And the fact that it took this moment to get there does not make him wrong. It makes him correct. He's correct. Here's what Rubio said back in 2023 when he was pushing legislation, NATO legislation, through the Senate. This is a direct quote. Any decision to leave the alliance should be rigorously debated and considered by the U.S. Congress with the input of the American people. So that was a man who genuinely believed the alliance was worth protecting. And at the time, before Operation Epic Fury, before Spain closed their airspace to us, or before France blocked overflights, that argument may have held some water, at least for Rubio. Rubio was not stupid for believing in NATO. He was operating on the information available to him. What changed is that the alliance revealed itself. The legislation is called Section 1250A of the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act. It requires a 2/3 Senate supermajority to pull the U.S. out of NATO. Rubio built that because he thought that the alliance was worth keeping. Now, what is interesting and what nobody gives him credit for is that Rubio is now willing to say out loud that he might have been wrong. And that is not weakness to me. I'm sorry. I appreciate when politicians admit when they were wrong. You have to make it possible for people to admit that they were wrong, or they never will. If the cost of admitting that you were wrong is too high, the punishment for it is too high, no one will do it. So we have to make it more palatable somehow to admit that you were wrong about things. It's a societal level problem.
The NATO is simply about us having troops in Europe to defend Europe, but when we need their help, not their help, we're not asking them to conduct airstrikes. When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years, trillions of dollars, and all of these American forces stationed in the region? If we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship
This might be libertarian nationalism's moment. You love to hear it, right? This is not that is not weakness, right? That is there's a legal nuance. Before Rubio's law even passed, the Department of the DOJ's own Office of Legal Counsel put out an opinion saying treaty withdrawal is an exclusive presidential power that Congress cannot legally restrain. So the law Rubio wrote may not even be enforceable if Trump challenges it in court. So the point is not that Rubio failed. The point is that circumstances moved faster than the legislation could keep up, and Rubio, to his credit, is moving with them. So let's talk about the money, because what's true and what's not true. Because this is where Rubio's frustration is most justified and I think most misunderstood. Sean Hannity said that the U.S. pays 2/3 of the NATO freight. The real number is 60%. Still an enormous number. Still a completely legitimate grievance. Now, here's the part where Rubio's position gets even more defensible. In 2025, for the first time since NATO set the 2% spending target in 2014, all 32 NATO members hit the target, every single one. Europe and Canada increased defense spending by 20% in 1 year, second straight year of 20% increases. Trump demanded Europe pay up, Europe pays up. So this is not a story about Europe refusing to contribute at all financially. They finally did what America asked. The story is something deeper. NATO is a defensive alliance. Article 5, the attack one, attack all clause, has been invoked exactly once in 76 years, September 11th, 2001. Europe showed up then. But what is being asked about now is fundamentally different. Refusing to host offensive strikes against Iran is not a violation of a NATO obligation. That is the actual text of the treaty. So we're not saying Europe is right to stand aside. We're saying Rubio is right to question whether an alliance that cannot support American interests beyond its own borders is actually an alliance worth the current price tag. Those are different conversations, and I think Rubio is having the more important one. Nice to see 112 people here joining us live on the Wake Up America show. Please introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to make new friends. And before you leave, click the follow button underneath the video on Rumble so that you'll get a notification when we go live, which is 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. So here's why I can't stop smiling about the Rubio transition. Here's the part that the mainstream press is not going to cover because they genuinely don't understand it. Libertarian nationalists are having an absolute moment right now, not because they want to abandon Europe. They don't want to abandon Europe. They just don't want to subsidize Europe's defense while Europe decides it will not return the favor, which is a completely reasonable position that the foreign policy establishment has been dismissing for 30 years by calling it isolationism and changing the subject. Jefferson put it this way in 1801: peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none. That is the founding foreign policy of the Republic. And for 200 years, the foreign policy blob told us that was naive. And then we spent 60% of the NATO budget, stationed 85,000 troops in Europe, and asked to use a runway, and got told no by Spain. Spain, a country whose last great military achievement was the Armada, and they did not go great either. So for the libertarian nationalists, this is not a crisis. This is proof of concept. NATO, as currently constructed, is not a mutual alliance. It is a subscription service where America pays the full price and Europe decides what gets streamed. And Marco Rubio, a man who spent his career on the other side of this argument, just arrived at the same conclusion on national television. And we shouldn't mock him. We should respect him. I am not gloating. I say we're welcoming Marco Rubio into this conversation. So say we all. So here's the real story inside the story, and it's about what the Republican Party becomes after all this is over. Everyone agrees J.D. Vance is the ideological heir to Trumpism. He's the theory. He's the book. He's the movement. Vance flew to Munich, the site of history's most famous act of appeasement, and told European leaders to their faces that America was done playing babysitter, which in fairness is a very bold thing to do in Munich specifically. Vance is the political heir. That is settled. But Rubio is becoming something different and arguably more valuable to the country right now. Rubio is becoming the technical heir, the man who knows where everybody is buried because he helped build the institution. He spent years on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He voted to ratify Finland and Sweden into NATO. He co-wrote the law that governs NATO withdrawal. And now he's Secretary of State managing an active war in real time while asking the hard questions about an alliance that he once protected. So this is what intellectual growth looks like in public office. The position that Rubio is landing on, that NATO must prove its value to American interests or be renegotiated, that is not the old Bush-era neocon position where we spread democracy until we run out of money and friends. It's something new. This is a pragmatic nationalist foreign policy. America first with a spreadsheet and a law degree. The Republican Party has never had that at the cabinet level before. And where Vance gives you the vision, Rubio's doing the hard work of figuring out what the vision actually costs. Those are two different jobs, and America needs both of them. What is happening right now is that a serious man is being changed by a serious job. And the conclusion he's reaching, that alliances must serve American interests or being renegotiated, is the right one. I apparently had to have an actual war for him to get to this.
Basis, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years, trillions of dollars, and all these American forces stationed in the region? If we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship. We're going to have to re-examine the value of NATO and that alliance for our country. Ultimately, that's a decision for the president to make, and he'll have to make it. We're going to finish the job here. As I said, we're very, very close to achieving our objectives on all of these things that I've outlined. But I do think, unfortunately, we are going to have to re-examine whether or not this alliance that has served this country well for a while is still serving that purpose, or is it now become a one-way street where America is simply in a position to defend Europe, but when we need the help of our allies, they're going to deny us basing rights and they're going to deny us overflight? I think these are very legitimate questions that we need to be asking, and this are going to have to be very carefully examined.
Damn. Isn't the future so annoyingly difficult to predict? Who could have predicted, even in 2024, it's 2026. Who could have predicted that Marco Rubio would have become such an important part, would have had such an important role to play in the Trump administration, the Secretary of State, foreign policy? I really expected Trump to be much more focused on domestic policy. That's just me. I'm not complaining about the foreign policy per se. It's not perfect. I would love to not have to pay higher gas prices, but I guess it's all trade-offs. I don't get to choose if we're in a war or not. Neither do you. We don't vote on those things anymore. I think that it's just a fascinating case study in politician behavior. If you look at Marco Rubio 2016 until Marco Rubio 2026, in the 10 years since he ran for president initially as a sort of Tea Party style candidate to really he was a standard Bush era style neocon, but those were the Tea Party years, so everybody was glomming on. And then to today, where his rhetoric is very America first, nationalist. It's what Marco Rubio is saying is not in conflict here with my libertarian nationalist manifesto. I mean, I know this is going to make a lot of my old friends angry at me. I know this is going to make a lot of my my libertarian friends angry at me because they just reflexively despise anyone who used to be a neocon or used to be a Bushite, or is even there. I know a lot of libertarians are mad at Trump because of the Iran war and they're ready to give up on him, throw his hands up in the air. But if you heard the first topic that we're discussing this morning, we're like getting rid of the regulation of the stop in cars, and all of the Supreme Court wins, Roe v. Wade. The war with Iran is just another tax, Austin, kind of like tariffs. Am I right? I don't know about that, Arvol. Not sure how you square that. But I'm just thankful to have 120 patriotic American citizens who love this country who are watching the Wake Up America show on Rumble right now. What's up, everybody? Glad to have you here. Lauren Fitness 93. Are you loving the show? Lauren, you're going to love it even more. My next guest is freaking amazing. I'm glad you're loving it. I hope you come back and join us every day. We're thankful to have you joining us here. Everybody say hello to Lauren and welcome her to the Wake Up America show. We overuse the applause button on this show. I'll admit, Lauren, I know it gets a little bit annoying, but before we go and get Camellia Peterson on the show and talk about the Kansas City Royals and the new border wars between Kansas and Missouri, first of all, can you bless me with something?
Can you bless me with something?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, gosh.
Money-wise. Please.
Can you suck it?
What?
What?
Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. And make sure that you guys visit the Grift Shop during the break. You've unlocked phase 1 of the bonus content, which means that you guys get to see our mini documentary instead of commercials. You lucky people. But if we raise another $50 before the end of the show, that will unlock our mini games where everybody gets to pull out their mobile phones and play a little game against one another. And if you win first place, then you win real prizes from the Grift Shop. And if you've never visited the Grift Shop, as we call it, it's forlibertyshop.com. Head on over and check out our 250 Years of Liberty, 1776 to 2026 collection. It's amazing. You'll love it, Lauren, I promise. Head on over to forlibertyshop.com. Check out our Betsy Ross double-sided 250th anniversary American flag. Fly that baby out front, loud and proud. And don't forget, to check out our coffee. Our coffee is delicious and highly rated. If you go to forlibertyshop.com, throw a couple of boxes of Founding Flavors coffee into your cart. The number one seller, Jeffersonian Java, got 4.8 stars. The electric elixir is so damn good. Benjamin Franklin's electric elixir is so damn good that it's just all 5 stars. Nobody is talking smack about electric elixir. If you've never tried them, try my value pack. I put together for you guys the value pack. So if you want to try all 3 of my favorite coffees, the Jeffersonian Java, the Electric Elixir, the Thomas's Painkiller, people like that name, at forlibertyshop.com. All right, don't go away, guys. We're going to go take a quick little break, but you get to enjoy the mini documentary. When we come back, Kansas stole the Kansas City Chiefs. They're coming for the Royals next. And the state of Kansas is about to spend $1.8 billion of taxpayer money, your money, to do it. Does this make sense, or are we getting played by billionaires? Don't go anywhere.
The hardscrabble farm country of Plimpton, Massachusetts, on December 17, 1760, a girl was born into poverty who would one day stand in the ranks of the Continental Army as a man. Deborah Sampson, tall for her time, strong from years of backbreaking labor, with steady hands and sharper courage, grew up indentured after her father abandoned the family. She worked as a servant, then a school teacher, spinning wool, plowing fields, and reading every book she could borrow by candlelight. She dreamed of adventure and freedom while the colonies burned with rebellion. By 1782, the war dragged into its 7th year. The British still held New York. Skirmishes raged in the neutral ground north of the city. Deborah wanted in. At 21, she cut her hair short, bound her chest tight with linen strips, stitched herself a homemade uniform of coarse linen and wool, and walked into a recruiting office. On May 20th, 1782, she enlisted as Robert Shirtleff, taking the name of a dead brother, and mustered into Captain George Webb's company of light infantry, 4th Massachusetts Regiment. She drilled with the men at West Point, learning the manual of arms, marching in step, and handling a musket and bayonet. The troops nicknamed the beardless young soldier Molly for his smooth face, but no one suspected. Soon, Robert was assigned dangerous scouting duty in the contested Westchester County, no man's land between British and American lines, crawling with loyalist raiders called cowboys. Deborah proved her mettle fast. In one fierce skirmish, a musket ball slammed into her left thigh. Pain exploded. Blood soaked her breeches. She staggered into the woods, away from the surgeon's tent. Alone, biting on a stick to stifle screams, she dug out one bullet with a penknife and sewing needle by firelight. The second lodged too deep. She bound the wound and limped back to duty the next day, jaw set, never complaining. She fought in multiple clashes against Tory raiders. One night, she led a small party of 30 men on a raid against a loyalist stronghold. They stormed the house in the dark, sabers and bayonets flashing. Deborah fought hand to hand, helping capture 15 prisoners. Another time, a saber slashed across her forehead. Blood streamed into her eyes. She let the surgeon stitch the head wound but slipped away before anyone examined her leg. Through it all, she marched, scouted, stood picket in pouring rain, and shared the hard life of the infantry. Salt pork, hardtack, frozen nights wrapped in a single blanket. She never faltered. Some claimed she even helped dig trenches and storm redoubts during the final days at Yorktown, enduring the roar of cannon and the smoke of victory. In the summer of 1783, while serving near Philadelphia, a malignant fever swept the camp. Deborah collapsed unconscious. Army doctors carried her to the hospital. As they cut away her blood-soaked clothes to treat her, the secret spilled out. The surgeon stared in shock at the woman lying on the table. Word raced up the chain of command. Instead of punishment, she received mercy. General Henry Knox himself reviewed her case. Impressed by her courage and service, he ordered an honorable discharge. On October 25, 1783, at West Point, Robert Shirtleff was mustered out with the rest of the army. Deborah Sampson walked away with her back pay, a few hard-earned dollars, and the knowledge that she had fought for liberty as boldly as any man. She returned to Massachusetts, married farmer Benjamin Gannett in 1785, and raised 3 children on a small farm in Sharon. Life was never easy. Old wounds ached, especially the bullet still lodged in her thigh. But she never regretted her choice. In later years, she toured the country lecturing about her experiences, one of the first women to do so, dressed sometimes in her old uniform. Congress eventually granted her a full military pension, the only woman to receive one for direct service in the Continental Army. Deborah Sampson died on April 29, 1827 at 66. She was buried in Sharon, later honored with a monument and the recognition she earned in blood and silence. She was no officer, no famous general, just a poor farm girl who refused to sit on the sidelines of history. With nothing but courage, needle and thread, and unbreakable will, Deborah Sampson slipped past every barrier, took her place in the fight, and proved that a woman could bleed, suffer, and triumph for the cause of American independence. Her story still thunders like a hidden drumbeat in the ranks of the Revolution, one soldier among thousands whose secret made her legend. In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
Boys, we all know, I think, or increasingly are realizing that boys are moving away from sort of the more progressive. Boys that spend time online are moving a little bit, I'm trying not to be political here, but are moving to the right and being sort of influenced by the Andrew Tates and some of that sort of alt-right socialization online that we know is very, very dangerous. My husband and I were alarmed when our kids were watching sports online and my son knew about Andrew Tate and thought he was pretty cool and thought that his Republican grandfather, who's not a Trumper, but a fiscal conservative, thought that my father would like Andrew Tate. So that's scary. We're like one of the most progressive households, and our son is confused and asking all these questions. We're working on legislation to hold tech companies accountable and help them be a force for good in our kids' and families' lives, to really provide all the best-in-class resources and support for youth so that they don't go down this rabbit hole of very, very dangerous and limiting narratives around ultimately what it means to be a girl and what it means to be a boy.
Yeah. Let's screw the intro. Let's get right into it. Camellia Peterson joining us here. Camellia, we don't want to confuse these young boys. We need We need legislation to stop these boys.
I thought that we were all about when kids are confused. I thought we were supposed to affirm them.
Exactly. Yeah. That is Gavin Newsom's wife, trying not to be political. She was concerned because her son was rejecting all these progressive narratives. We're the most progressive household in California, and their son, oh, God bless him, whoever he is, that little based in red-pilled boy. Remember Gavin was saying that like his son was really admired Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. I mean, Godspeed to their kids, because like that's, if they can push back against what they've grown up with, good for them.
I guess so, right? And isn't it funny though, because being conservative or being right wing or being nationalist is seen as subversive in American society now. Oh, yeah, you rebel when you become conservative. That's a rebellion.
Yeah, I have never liked Andrew Tate. I actually think he's like, if we're going to talk alpha beta males, I actually think he's a beta male and that he does a lot of projecting. However, like, I've talked about this a lot with different friends, and I do kind of view Andrew Tate as sort of like the top of the funnel, right? I mean, like, he's sort of like the gateway drug to the masculinity movement.
Yeah, because like teenage boys who have no concept of masculinity, they're trying to learn it. They see him in like private jets with beautiful women and cars, and they think that that's what they need to do to be a man. And so it's a very, very tempting way to get men into the manosphere. But if they're smart, then they end up following Aaron Clary, right?
Yeah, that's right. And then they can learn to be young curmudgeons.
I mean, young curmudgeons like Aaron Clary. But I feel like Aaron Clary has a healthier view of the sort of
Agreed.
the red pill masculinity movement and stuff. So
Sure.
Yeah. So, but we'll stay away from the manosphere red pill stuff here. And we're gonna get to Kansas City and the Royals and the renewed border war between Missouri and Kansas here in just a few minutes. We'll hit the local stuff. But on this topic here, where you have Gavin Newsom's wife talking about legislation to go after tech companies because they might be allowing people to become right wing. I mean, they're aiming at people like myself, because that's what I do all day, is radicalize young people to the right, be right wing.
I mean, someone should make a law that shuts you down.
I mean, it is tech platform, because they're not going to go after Mark Zuckerberg because he's woke. He's a trans the kids kind of a lefty, but they're going to go after Elon Musk. They're going to go after Rumble. They're going to come after us because we're the ones who are teaching young boys, like, just don't be gay.
Well,
just kidding. You can be gay. Just,
Isn't it funny that both sides at some point go after big tech because it's not like doing the things that, you want it to do? Now, I will say, in fairness, on the right, most of the time, the going after big tech has been because, if they put things that are awful for children to see, right? I mean, like, we do need to protect the kids in some ways. They just tend to go about it in ways that violate everyone's freedom and take all the responsibility away from parents.
I thought it was because people like Jennifer Bukowski play too much Candy Crush and spend thousands of dollars on their mobile games. And those mobile games are the ones that are...
Jen is right there with us on that,
She is. Yeah, vice chair of the GOP. Give a shout out to Jen Bukowski. Here in Missouri, speaking of Missouri, for decades, Missouri and Kansas, we've been fighting over the same businesses, the same companies, and the same tax dollars in one of the most expensive economic grudge matches in American regional history. So we called a truce back in 2019, and Kansas broke it. On December 23rd of last year, Kansas Governor Laura Kelly shook hands with Chiefs Chairman Clark Hunt and announced a $3 billion domed stadium deal. It could be the largest in American history, CJ. Missouri, we already lost the Chiefs. The Royals still in play, but probably heading to the door. And the state of Kansas is now paying for it with Kansas tax money. So, Camelia, the broader question of what this border war is actually costing to both of us across the line, let's talk about it, okay?
Yeah, I mean, this was a huge debate this last year. They had a whole special session in the legislature for it because, like, the question was, what was Missouri going to offer? What was the offer going to be? And I'll tell you, like, a lot of us were and are opposed to offering subsidies for these millionaire, billionaire stadium owners, team owners. But the thing is that I do appreciate what our governor did, because I think you're in a between a rock and a hard place when you're faced with being a first-year governor and the prospect of losing the team that the state adores, right? And then you have the whole Taylor Swift thing mixed in there. So I think that they put probably the most reasonable offer that they could on the table. And Mr. Hunt said, thanks, but no thanks, because Kansas kept upping the ante. And to his credit, our governor was like, nope, that's all we're going to do, because we're not going to stick it to our taxpayers, which is exactly what Kansas did. Mm-hmm. They stuck it to the taxpayers.
Yeah, they screwed themselves. It's kind of like, all right, well, go ahead and do it. You know, let's set the table, though, for people who don't understand this. I was trying to explain to Stephanie the other day about the border wars. Border ruffians, John Brown, bleeding Kansas. The hatred between Missouri and Kansas is basically ancient at this point.
Yeah.
But it had been renewed in what had really become official agitation for between the rivalries of Kansas City, Missouri and Kansas City, Kansas. Most people don't understand that Kansas City is Missouri and it's in Kansas. Kansas City, Missouri was here first. Kansas City, Kansas was established specifically to spite us and to steal away trade from Kansas City, Missouri across the Missouri River. And now we're stuck, 100 and 150 years later with this pile of crap that we sort of pile up on top of our heads. And rather than compete through lower taxes, the incentives are always steal from the local taxpayers to subsidize billionaires. And even the citizens of Kansas City, Missouri, they didn't vote for the tax increase. The billionaires got all huffy puffy and they took their ball and they went home to Kansas. And I'm kind of like, Bafangul, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, like the voters in that area, in the Kansas City area, had been presented with this option before, and they said no. And so that was the other piece of the puzzle too. Like at the state level, the state, made its offer and everything, but it required buy-in from the local county and city. And they've just like they're there. They see it like they, of all people in the state, should most understand the benefit or not the benefit. And they've rejected it. So yeah, I think that that kind of was the beginning of everything sort of falling apart, because there has been this truce about competing through policy or whatever for businesses on that border line for Kansas City. And so, when that happened, they were like, it's officially off, like the truce is over. And there are so many things when you talk about policy and how to compete, like Missouri's having to learn this lesson. And if they don't learn it, they're going to continue to suffer even more, that they cannot compete with giving handouts. They need to compete with fewer regulations, making it easier to do business. Because another one of the things that's happening in Kansas City is that they have what is the big soccer thing called that's coming in? Like, this is not my thing.
The World Cup.
Anyway,
the World Cup.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Javier Milei is going to be there. Argentina.
No way.
Yeah,
we might get a meeting.
we might have to actually go, because Javier Milei, I think, is going to be there for the Argentina and the World Cup games. So
that would be cool.
We'll go see Java. We'll bring have him sign our chainsaws. We'll see if they let us through security into the World Cup with giant chainsaws. Yeah.
Hey, that might be what the media stunt that you have to do that to get its attention, right?
Exactly. Camelia.
But here's the thing,
go ahead.
For that World Cup thing, like there's like all of these people are going to be there, and business is a big thing. And when you talk about things like food trucks and things that mobile operators like that, where do you think they are going right now? Because we don't have policies that are conducive to them operating business. They're freaking going to Kansas. So that's actually one of the things we're working on legislatively, is to try to make that easier for them. But I don't like what it takes to wake our government officials up to that. We'll see.
Camelia Peterson joins us live on the Wake Up America show Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 a.m. Central. Today's Tuesday, which means it's not Thursday. Womp womp. We're not even halfway there, but say a little prayer for you. Camelia and Austin will get you through this week. We love you. We're here for you. Always and forever. Kansas is covering at least $1.8 billion of this $3.3 billion stadium deal through star bonds, sales tax and revenue bonds, plus lottery and sports wagering money. It's a 60-40 split with the Hunt family. So what are these star bonds? Who's on the hook if the thing doesn't generate the revenue that they are projecting?
Well, so normally, the Star Bond district or the area that it covers would primarily just be the stadium and right there around it, because the idea is that the stadium generates the revenue that covers those, what they're getting out of it, right? It pays it back, so to speak, the taxpayer money that's being fronted for this. Because this is the thing, is like taxpayer money is being fronted. However, when you looked at the final outcome of the Star Bond District, it's much bigger than, what it was supposed to be. And the thing is the idea is that this is supposed to be new revenue that pays off those star bonds for this. But when they widen that area that it covers, they're actually taking existing revenue that people are already having, so people are having to spend more in those district that they would have, this is not just coming from the new stadium business. This is coming from people in areas that they're already shopping. So the taxpayers are on the hook for, things that they never would have even been purchasing just because they were going to a football game.
Economists across the political spectrum, from Brookings to the Tax Foundation to the St. Louis Fed, they're nearly unanimous, Camelia, that public stadium subsidies do not pay off.
Yeah.
The St. Louis Fed said that a baseball team has about the same economic impact as a mid-sized department store. A University of Chicago panel that included 7 Nobel Prize winners in economics found 83% of them agreed stadium subsidies aren't worth the cost. So why do politicians keep doing this?
I mean, because I know we're the party of facts, don't care about your feelings, but this is very much a feelings issue. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of emotions tied up in this, and it's a very, it tugs at your heartstrings and also at your mind when they say, oh, we're going to lose all of this business and, we're going to lose all this tax revenue from them leaving. But they get so many tax breaks already that we are not losing. And you're right, like all of the studies and the white papers and things that have been done of all of the deals that have been made like this across the country have shown that there's really never any positive economic outcome of this that is beneficial for the state or the taxpayers.
So Kansas Governor Laura Kelly said the deal will generate 20,000 jobs and more than $4 billion in economic impact during construction. Her own state senator, Mike Thompson, said the deal will, quote, live in infamy. Another Republican representative said the whole argument about economic activity being generated by the stadium is, in his words, obvious. So is Kansas just on a downward spiral at this point? Their income tax rollout, they seem like they've been discombobulated for a little while.
I am wondering when they get rid of their governor. So slightly off topic, but related to Kansas, I just read yesterday that their legislature had basically passed a legislation kind of like what we're trying to do in Missouri, where it basically requires more accountability in the regulatory process with agencies making rules and unelected bureaucrats, that they had passed legislation that would essentially, rein that in and create more checks and balances. And she vetoed it. Mm-hmm. And so because, she was like, this is, messing things up too much, it's upsetting the checks and balances, and we shouldn't make things harder for unelected bureaucrats to make rules. So I don't know, Kansas needs to get its head on straight.
So the Chiefs are staying at Arrowhead through the 2030 season. The new stadium in Wyandotte County is not open until 2031 at the earliest. So 5 years of limbo. Yeah. What does that do to the Missouri side of Kansas City economically in the meantime? What does Jackson County do with 2 stadiums? What are we going to do with these things? They're about to be empty.
Yeah, well, there was a proposal in this session earlier this year from a couple of lawmakers who would like to see all of the current handouts that we're already giving the Chiefs cut off, now. So I don't know that will happen. I think things will continue as they have been, but it will be interesting to me to see whether or not attendance declines, because this upset a lot of people. And the argument that it's going to create more jobs, it's going to do this and that for Kansas. Here's the thing. We're talking about they're just moving over the state line. They're still going to be in the same city, which is why they can still call it the Kansas City Chiefs. Like they've got an easy move here. But do you think people that have jobs with them are going to quit because they've moved across the state line? No, they're going to keep living in Missouri or wherever they're living, and they're just going to drive to wherever it is. If it's a good job, they're going to keep it. So I don't even think the job creation part of it, other than maybe the construction, but I don't even buy that. I don't think that really pans out.
Camelia Peterson, live on the Wake Up America show, fellow Missourian, fellow free marketeer. The Royals are still undecided, Camelia. I've always been more of a baseball guy than a football guy, so it tears my heart out to think that the Royals are going to leave Kansas City, because I have so many wonderful memories of going with my grandparents and my cousins to the Royals games there in Independence. They lived right over there, right by the stadium. So at night, we would get to watch the fireworks from Grandma's house, even if we weren't at the games, which was very special and fun. But as much as I love those memories, I don't love the idea of being extorted to fund the next generations of kids' memories. And I don't think that we should extort them either over a sport which I know people are call it the national sport, but I almost feel like that's a marketing campaign the same way De Beers Diamond Corporation. You know how they just kind of hijacked us and all thinking you need to pay 2 months' salary to buy this crappy rock that we can make in a lab now, by the way, for way cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
Diamonds are forever.
Girl's best friend.
Yeah. But speaking of diamonds, baseball is, to me, the one professional sport that I can kind of dig and go to the games and have a good time. The Royals might leave. What's the story with them? If Kansas gets the Royals too, what does Missouri have left? Is there any counterplay available?
So, I mean, I don't think that our legislature will do any more than what they've done. I think that, the governor and the legislature is done. We're done with that. So I think that really the question now is what does happen with the Royals. And I'm not sure, because, a few months ago, whenever this was all getting kind of finalized, the Royals were all of a sudden like, oh, can we get in on that deal too? Because they've been dragging their feet. And so at the time, Kansas was like, nope, too late, but, it's not over. Like, so, I mean, there is still the possibility that they could woo them over. I do think that probably, in spite of emotional attachment and memories to that, like there is an argument to be made that the Royals don't draw in as much in terms of business as the Chiefs do, or even as the Cardinals do. So it's probably less of a loss, maybe than the others.
I can't believe it. I've my whole life been back in the Royals, and now I've got to go for the Cardinals. No offense. I mean, I always,
here's the thing.
I always root for the Cardinals when they're not playing the Royals, but I mean, you can't. I'm not rooting for some Kansas team. Sorry.
Yeah, no, so I'm not a sportsy person, but I enjoy other people's enthusiasm for it, and I do have a good time in watching games. So I've only ever been to two Major League Baseball games: the Kansas City Royals and the St. Louis Cardinals. And I will tell you, it's maybe an unpopular opinion, but the experience at the Cardinals Stadium was much, much better.
Yeah.
It was just a beautiful stadium, and it just was.
I know you're not into the sports stuff, Camelia, but where I think you would probably get along and have a good time is at the fights. Have you ever been to like a boxing match or to a UFC fight, gone like ringside?
No.
Okay, honestly, it's actually pretty fun. That one I do enjoy, but I've always enjoyed men beating the hell out of each other and karate and all that shit. So, anyways.
Well, we missed out on the midget fights that came to Jeff City during
the midget
COVID.
fights? No.
Do you remember that?
We missed the midget fights. Oh, damn it. Camelia, we've covered a wide range of topics here this morning, and I don't want to monopolize your time. So is there anything else that you think we missed on this story or anything that you'd like to share before we let you go?
I know I was telling you before we came on the air that I really enjoyed the video. What are you calling it? The featured selection, bonus content. Anyway, I liked that story, but it was making me think of, and then when you were talking about Gavin Newsom's wife, like it was making me think of this, the idea that, there have always been women who do exceptional things, but they've been the exception, and we've lost allowing women to be exceptional when we've dumbed down and lowered the requirements and the merits for that. And it's been such a bad thing for our society, but I really, really enjoyed the bonus content today.
There we go. Thank you. I'm glad. Deborah Sampson, glad you enjoyed it and glad we unlocked it, man. People are so financially generous to us, and that includes you, Camelia. You have been, Brad and I were talking about you and John Combis yesterday, that you guys were like the first two people to sign up to be Peterson's Patriots to support the For Liberty Network. And it was all wing and a prayer. One podcast that would eventually become now 5 live shows. And boy, have we got a lot more cooking. Thank you for helping us to build this and for being a stalwart and a regular on the show, Camelia. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. I hope you all have a good day.
Bye, CJ.
Is a paper tiger. Putin's not afraid of NATO. Putin's afraid of us, very afraid of us. And he's explained it to me a lot of times. I got to know him very well. I know him very well. NATO's a paper tiger. NATO is us. And when we needed them, but we didn't need them, by the way. We didn't need them, obviously, because they haven't helped at all. Just the opposite. They've actually gone out of their way not to help. They didn't even want to give us landing strips. Think of it. And it's not just NATO. You know who else didn't help us? South Korea didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Australia didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Japan. We've got 50,000 soldiers in Japan to protect them from North Korea. We have 45,000 soldiers in South Korea to protect us from Kim Jong-un, who I get along with very well, as you know. Do you notice he said very nice things about me? He used to call Joe Biden a mentally retarded person, okay? So don't tell me about your stuff.
What did he just say? There's already an anime for that video.
ジョー・バイデンについて昔なんて言われてたか知ってるか。あいつは知的障害者だってさ。信じられるか。陰でバカって呼ばれてたんだ。でも俺はみんな俺のことが大好きなんだよ。
What is happening? I hope you guys are having a great time this morning on the Wake Up America show. I hope you're enjoying things. And even if you weren't, I could just click the applause button and the laughter button anyway. Okay. All right. Quiet down. All right, we got a lot more to go. There's still a half an hour left. Still have a chance to unlock the bonus content phase 2. You've unlocked phase 1. Camelia has been enjoying the Deborah Sampson biopic Lego mini documentary we have been producing for America's 250th anniversary in honor of 250 years of greatness. A series of mini documentaries in a Lego theme about heroes of American history, about some of the great battles of the American Revolution. And to go along with all of that, we also have our incredible 250 Years of Liberty collection at forlibertyshop.com. Now, I know what you guys are saying. Austin, I love the 250th anniversary collection. I want to get the Betsy Ross style flag, or perhaps the Colonial Soldier Revolutionary War kitchen apron. And that's all well and good. But if you're saying, Austin, that libertarian nationalist t-shirt that you're wearing is beautiful. I want that. That's fine. You can get my Libertarian Nationalist t-shirt that I'm currently wearing at forlibertyshop.com. Just click over to on the front page to the most recent product drops. Stephanie has been very busy. I love the Join or Die trucker hat, the retro colonial snake mesh cap, a great one for any season. Homeschool rocks, homeschooling t-shirts, all of the latest product drops. God bless America. The 250th anniversary collection will blow your mind, and nobody else has it. So, Javier Milei, why does he matter? We're going to talk about him when he gets back. Poverty in Half, the Libertarian Nationalist experiment, unfolding before us in real time. We are so close to greatness. If you would only reach out and accept it. We'll be back after the break. It's the Wake Up America show, and you're watching the For Liberty Network. The easy way.
In the hardscrabble farm country of Plimpton, Massachusetts, on December 17, 1760, a girl was born into poverty who would one day stand in the ranks of the Continental Army as a man. Deborah Sampson, tall for her time, strong from years of backbreaking labor, with steady hands and sharper courage, grew up indentured after her father abandoned the family. She worked as a servant, then a school teacher, spinning wool, plowing fields, and reading every book she could borrow by candlelight. She dreamed of adventure and freedom while the colonies burned with rebellion. By 1782, the war dragged into its 7th year. The British still held New York. Skirmishes raged in the neutral ground north of the city. Deborah wanted in. At 21, she cut her hair short, bound her chest tight with linen strips, stitched herself a homemade uniform of coarse linen and wool, and walked into a recruiting office. On May 20th, 1782, she enlisted as Robert Shirtleff, taking the name of a dead brother, and mustered into Captain George Webb's company of light infantry, 4th Massachusetts Regiment. She drilled with the men at West Point, learning the manual of arms, marching in step, and handling a musket and bayonet. The troops nicknamed the beardless young soldier Molly for his smooth face, but no one suspected. Soon, Robert was assigned dangerous scouting duty in the contested Westchester County, no man's land between British and American lines, crawling with loyalist raiders called cowboys. Deborah proved her mettle fast. In one fierce skirmish, a musket ball slammed into her left thigh. Pain exploded. Blood soaked her breeches. She staggered into the woods, away from the surgeon's tent. Alone, biting on a stick to stifle screams, she dug out one bullet with a penknife and sewing needle by firelight. The second lodged too deep. She bound the wound and limped back to duty the next day, jaw set, never complaining. She fought in multiple clashes against Tory raiders. One night, she led a small party of 30 men on a raid against a loyalist stronghold. They stormed the house in the dark, sabers and bayonets flashing. Deborah fought hand to hand, helping capture 15 prisoners. Another time, a saber slashed across her forehead. Blood streamed into her eyes. She let the surgeon stitch the head wound but slipped away before anyone examined her leg. Through it all, she marched, scouted, stood picket in pouring rain, and shared the hard life of the infantry. Salt pork, hardtack, frozen nights wrapped in a single blanket. She never faltered. Some claimed she even helped dig trenches and storm redoubts during the final days at Yorktown, enduring the roar of cannon and the smoke of victory. In the summer of 1783, while serving near Philadelphia, a malignant fever swept the camp. Deborah collapsed unconscious. Army doctors carried her to the hospital. As they cut away her blood-soaked clothes to treat her, the secret spilled out. The surgeon stared in shock at the woman lying on the table. Word raced up the chain of command. Instead of punishment, she received mercy. General Henry Knox himself reviewed her case. Impressed by her courage and service, he ordered an honorable discharge. On October 25, 1783, at West Point, Robert Shirtleff was mustered out with the rest of the army. Deborah Sampson walked away with her back pay, a few hard-earned dollars, and the knowledge that she had fought for liberty as boldly as any man. She returned to Massachusetts, married farmer Benjamin Gannett in 1785, and raised 3 children on a small farm in Sharon. Life was never easy. Old wounds ached, especially the bullet still lodged in her thigh. But she never regretted her choice. In later years, she toured the country lecturing about her experiences, one of the first women to do so, dressed sometimes in her old uniform. Congress eventually granted her a full military pension, the only woman to receive one for direct service in the Continental Army. Deborah Sampson died on April 29, 1827 at 66. She was buried in Sharon, later honored with a monument and the recognition she earned in blood and silence. She was no officer, no famous general, just a poor farm girl who refused to sit on the sidelines of history. With nothing but courage, needle and thread, and unbreakable will, Deborah Sampson slipped past every barrier, took her place in the fight, and proved that a woman could bleed, suffer, and triumph for the cause of American independence. Her story still thunders like a hidden drumbeat in the ranks of the Revolution, one soldier among thousands whose secret made her legend.
I'm proposing that member countries be able to independently negotiate free trade agreements with other countries around the world. And in that sense, I've said that we're going to work in Argentina to achieve a free trade agreement with the US. And this, which seemed like a pipe dream today. As of today, one of the men who works with Donald Trump said that it's on the agenda to move forward with the agenda of freedom with Argentina.
He doesn't speak English, by the way. Thank you for AI for translating that into English. These beautiful words. This wonderful, wonderful man. Let's talk about Javier Milei.
Afuera!
Let us acknowledge something. Every single person in a position of power, every think tank, every international monetary body, every left-wing economist with a Substack and a superiority complex told you this man was going to be a disaster. They called him dangerous. They called him extreme. The press called him Argentina's Trump, like that was an insult. They showed you the chainsaw. They played the clips of him screaming on television. They wrote 1,200-word think pieces about how his policies were going to immiserate the poor, destabilize South America, and embarrass the global community. And then the data came back. Every single one of them was wrong. Javier Milei is an economist who spent 20 years screaming into a microphone that Argentina's political class was destroying the country. He was right. Argentina had defaulted on its sovereign debt 9 times before Milei. Most countries do it once, and it's a national trauma. Argentina made it a hobby. By the time Javier Milei took office in December of 2023, annual inflation was running at over 200%, not monthly, annual. That means the price of everything that you bought in January was double by December, every year for years. The political class did this. The Peronists of Argentina did this. The Kirchners did this. Decades of money printing, government expansion, subsidy bloat, and institutionalized corruption did this. And when the country was finally broken enough, the people looked around and said, you know what? Let's try the lunatic with the chainsaw. And the lunatic with the chainsaw turned out to be the only sane person in the room.
Afuera!
So here's what Milei actually did. Not what the press said he did, what he actually did. He took office and immediately devalued the peso to reflect its actual market value instead of the government's fantasy exchange rate. This was painful for the country. This was supposed to be painful. You cannot fix a decade of lies without acknowledging the truth first, and the truth hurts. All right, he slashed government spending. He didn't trim it. He didn't adjust it. He slashed it. He eliminated entire government ministries. He fired thousands of public officials. He cut subsidies that had been keeping energy and transportation artificially cheap for years while the government borrowed money it didn't have to pay for them. He called this the chainsaw approach, and he was not being metaphorical. Argentina recorded its first budget surplus in 14 years. A government that had been spending more than it took in for over a decade suddenly stopped. He didn't gradually phase anything in. He didn't form a committee. He didn't study a commission, or he just stopped. And the economy, after the initial shock that hurt and was supposed to hurt because medicine is not supposed to taste like candy, started to respond. Monthly inflation went from 25.5% in December of 2023 to 2.9% by February of this year. That is a transformation. Annual inflation went from over 200% to 31% by the end of 2025. Still high by any normal standard. But in Argentina, that's the equivalent of putting out a building fire and complaining that the floor is still wet. The building was on fire. It's not on fire anymore. Give the man his moment. Now, here's the one that should make every critic of Milei sit down and be quiet about poverty, because here is the argument. 1 second, guys, 1 second. So you cannot cut spending like this without destroying the poor, right? You can't remove subsidies without crushing the vulnerable. There's going to be a pain from people who are getting before it and then are not going to, they're going to be hungry in the initial days. This was the left's entire case against Milei, saying austerity has failed before, shock therapy had failed before. There was a legitimate argument to be had because there had been examples of people who had tried to do what Milei had done, but none of them were Austrian economists. When Milei took office, poverty in Argentina was at 41.7%. By the first half of 2024, after the initial devaluation shock, it spiked to 52.9%. And that's when the left and many of their useful idiots here in the media said, see, we told you, disaster. And then a remarkable thing happened. It started falling 52.9% to 38.1%, then to 31.6%, then to 28.2% in the second half of 2025, the lowest level since 2018, a 24.7 percentage point drop from the peak. So in less than 2 years, that is a miracle. That's not just an economic policy result. That is an economic miracle. But what made it possible was simple. For the first time since Milei took office, household income growth outpaced the cost of basic goods. So income went up 18%. The basic food basket went up 11%. People could afford to eat again. Not because the government gave them more money, it's because the government stopped destroying the money that they already had. So this is the difference between capitalism and just mindless populism in one sentence. Argentina proved it with real numbers in the real world that when has real libertarianism ever been tried? Well, there it is. There it is. In a leather jacket and crazy hair. Now, the numbers are just half the story, speaking of the hair, because the other half is the person. Javier Milei is not just an average politician. He is an economist who decided to become a politician because the politicians were destroying the country. Now, that's fundamentally a different kind of person that usually runs for office. Most politicians are lawyers or people who just decided they wanted power and then figured out what to believe. But Milei is a man who believed something for 20 years and then decided the only way to make it real was to get power. That's an entirely different animal. He stood at Davos, which is the annual gathering of the world's most powerful people. Every room is full of billionaires, central bankers, the type of people who've been running the global economy into the ground for decades. And he told them to their faces that the free market is the only moral system ever devised by mankind. The room looked like they had been told Santa Claus is not real. And then he flew home to Argentina, kept doing what he said he was going to do. And that's rarer than it sounds. He gave an interview to a Spanish outlet where he was asked about the U.S.-Israel operation against Iran, and he said, I support totally and absolutely the actions of the United States and Israel. You can't say things like that without somebody smashing a beer bottle in a bar and trying to stab you with it. At least one person is going to, some free Palestine idiot. Some retard is going to try and stab you. He called Israel the bastion of the West. He said he doesn't care what the international socialist press says about Netanyahu. Every other leader in Latin America is either silent or siding with Iran. Milei is the only one in the region saying that out loud. And Argentina has personal reasons for that position. Iranian-backed terrorism killed hundreds of Argentines. The 1992 embassy bombing and the 1994 AMIA attack. When Milei stands with Israel and the United States, he's not just making an ideological argument. He's honoring his country's own dead. That's not politics. That's character. And it's very libertarian nationalist. Now, let's be fair, because I think it's important to be fair. And, you know, if we make the case, if we can make the pro-Milei case stronger by looking at our enemies' arguments honestly, then we should do it. Critics are not entirely wrong. Unemployment in Argentina is at its highest level since the pandemic. 22,000 companies have closed since Milei took office. Formal sector wages in the second half of 2025 grew at 28.8%, below the 31% inflation rate, meaning formal workers technically lost purchasing power even as the overall poverty rate fell. The Iran war has sent energy prices surging, and gas in Argentina is up 15% since the start of the conflict. Milei's approval rating hit 36% this month, which is the lowest of his presidency, and some economists have raised legitimate questions about the methodology of the poverty statistics. So yes, the recovery is real, but the recovery is uneven. Both of those things are true. But here's the question that the critics never answer. Compared to what? What is the alternative? Because the alternative has a name. It's called Kirchnerism. It's called printing money until the currency collapses. It's called 9 sovereign debt defaults. It's called 53% poverty. So that's what the critics are defending, whether they know it or not, because every argument against Milei is implicitly an argument for what came before him. And what came before him left over half the country in poverty. The medicine is hard. The medicine is supposed to be hard. The disease was worse. Welcome to your chemotherapy treatment. Unique times we are in. I love it. White pill. Yes, very much a white pill, Frickety. I'm glad you see that. I'm glad you guys see it. That's why you're here. So here's why this matters. Here's why this matters to every person watching this show in America. And it's not because this story is remarkable. It is a phenomenal, unbelievable story. The story is, of course, our proof of concept. The quote, when has real libertarianism ever been tried? Milei is the living answer to the question that libertarian nationalists like myself in this country have been asking for 30 years. What actually happens when you shrink the government? What actually happens when you stop printing money? What actually happens when you let the market function instead of rigging it with subsidies and credits and regulatory carve-outs? The answer, at least in Argentina, at least so far, is that poverty falls 25 points in 2 years, and you record your first budget surplus in 14 years. Congratulations. Congratulations, Javier Milei. Now, America is not Argentina. The problems are different in scale and kind and context, but the underlying principle here is the same. Governments that spend money they do not have or print currency to cover the difference and expand their power into every corner of economic life do not help the poor. They create more of them. And then they create more of them slowly and then all at once. Milei's been saying this for 20 years. He got laughed at. He got called dangerous. He was compared to every historical villain that the left has in rotation. And then he won. And then he governed. And then the numbers came back. And the numbers say he was right. Thomas Jefferson understood that government closest to the people governs best. Millet understood that government farthest from the economy performs best. They were saying the same thing 200 years apart. And Argentina, of all places, of all countries, of all the unlikely stages in the world, is where that idea is being tested out right now in real time with real consequences for real people. Pay attention to what's happening, because what Millet is proving in Buenos Aires is exactly what every libertarian nationalist in America has been trying to explain to the foreign policy blob, the regulatory state, and the permanent political class for 30 years. Freedom works. Capitalism works. When you actually try it, it works. If you've just tuned into the Wake Up America show, I'm sorry to say this is the end of the show. But it's been a great show, and I hope that if you did get to watch much of the show today, that you truly enjoyed it and that you would reward us by clicking the like button. When you click the like button, it helps us to spread the ideas of economic freedom and personal liberty. If today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show, clicking the follow button is a totally free way to support the show, because you'll get a notification whenever we go live. The show schedule, Wake Up America show, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. If you kind of like me, but think, I'm in the realm of Austin Peterson, but I need something, I don't know, maybe a little bit more, say, blonde, then check out Culturama. Taking back tomorrow today, Daniela Pensack brings energy, optimism, and sharp cultural insight to the For Liberty Network. Her 1950s inspired aesthetic and forward-looking optimism about liberty. Culturama explores culture, politics, technology, and the battle of ideas shaping tomorrow. So check her out. It's Tuesday. She'll be on tonight, 7 p.m. Brian Piotr's on Wednesdays. Cafecito Libre. If you love Javier Milei and you want more Milei, then check out Cafecito Libre, the bilingual podcast from the For Liberty Network. Cafecito Libre, starring Mylene Salabaria, is today, 3 p.m. Central Time to 5 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you tune in Tuesdays and Thursdays. Cafecito Libre is live. You can watch Cafecito Libre on Rumble as well. And then, of course, Friday nights are Freedom Arcade. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shows. 5 shows on the For Liberty Network. And don't forget, too, while you're here, check out forlibertyshop.com. That's the great grift shop. Go to the grift shop at thegriftshop.com. Get yourself some of our 250th anniversary of America collection merch. And we'll see you guys when we get back tomorrow on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network.
Hardscrabble farm country of Plimpton, Massachusetts on December 17, 1760, a girl was born into poverty who would one day stand in the ranks of the Continental Army as a man. Deborah Sampson, tall for her time, strong from years of backbreaking labor, with steady hands and sharper courage, grew up indentured after her father abandoned the family. She worked as a servant, then a school teacher, spinning wool, plowing fields, and reading every book she could borrow by candlelight. She dreamed of adventure and freedom while the colonies burned with rebellion. By 1782, the war dragged into its 7th year. The British still held New York. Skirmishes raged in the neutral ground north of the city. Deborah wanted in. At 21, she cut her hair short, bound her chest tight with linen strips, stitched herself a homemade uniform of coarse linen and wool, and walked into a recruiting office. On May 20th, 1782, she enlisted as Robert Shirtleff, taking the name of a dead brother, and mustered into Captain George Webb's company of light infantry, 4th Massachusetts Regiment. She drilled with the men at West Point, learning the manual of arms, marching in step, and handling a musket and bayonet. The troops nicknamed the beardless young soldier Molly for his smooth face, but no one suspected. Soon, Robert was assigned dangerous scouting duty in the contested Westchester County. no man's land between British and American lines, crawling with loyalist raiders called cowboys. Deborah proved her mettle fast. In one fierce skirmish, a musket ball slammed into her left thigh. Pain exploded. Blood soaked her breeches. She staggered into the woods, away from the surgeon's tent. Alone, biting on a stick to stifle screams, she dug out one bullet with a penknife and sewing needle by firelight. The second lodged too deep. She bound the wound and limped back to duty the next day, jaw set, never complaining. She fought in multiple clashes against Tory raiders. One night, she led a small party of 30 men on a raid against a loyalist stronghold. They stormed the house in the dark, sabers and bayonets flashing. Deborah fought hand to hand, helping capture 15 prisoners. Another time, a saber slashed across her forehead. Blood streamed into her eyes. She let the surgeon stitch the head wound but slipped away before anyone examined her leg. Through it all, she marched, scouted, stood picket in pouring rain, and shared the hard life of the infantry. Salt pork, hardtack, frozen nights wrapped in a single blanket. She never faltered. Some claimed she even helped dig trenches and storm redoubts during the final days at Yorktown, enduring the roar of cannon and the smoke of victory. In the summer of 1783, while serving near Philadelphia, a malignant fever swept the camp. Deborah collapsed unconscious. Army doctors carried her to the hospital. As they cut away her blood-soaked clothes to treat her, the secret spilled out. The surgeon stared in shock at the woman lying on the table. Word raced up the chain of command. Instead of punishment, she received mercy. General Henry Knox himself reviewed her case. Impressed by her courage and service, he ordered an honorable discharge. On October 25, 1783, at West Point, Robert Shirtleff was mustered out with the rest of the army. Deborah Sampson walked away with her back pay, a few hard-earned dollars, and the knowledge that she had fought for liberty as boldly as any man. She returned to Massachusetts, married farmer Benjamin Gannett in 1785, and raised 3 children on a small farm in Sharon. Life was never easy. Old wounds ached, especially the bullet still lodged in her thigh. But she never regretted her choice. In later years, she toured the country lecturing about her experiences, one of the first women to do so, dressed sometimes in her old uniform. Congress eventually granted her a full military pension, the only woman to receive one for direct service in the Continental Army. Deborah Sampson died on April 29, 1827 at 66. She was buried in Sharon, later honored with a monument and the recognition she earned in blood and silence. She was no officer, no famous general, just a poor farm girl who refused to sit on the sidelines of history. With nothing but courage, needle and thread, and unbreakable will, Deborah Sampson slipped past every barrier, took her place in the fight, and proved that a woman could bleed, suffer, and triumph for the cause of American independence. Her story still thunders like a hidden drumbeat in the ranks of the Revolution. One soldier